Okay, thank you all for joining us today. We're thrilled to have Caitlin Ting, the Assistant Manager for Outreach and Selection from the Critical Language Scholarship Program, joining us to give a brief overview of the CLS program and its options, and the award components and upcoming timeline for this cycle. So, Caitlin, I'll turn it over to you.
Right. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting CLS to be here and to talk with you about what the program is. We're so excited to hear that you're considering applying. The CLS program is a program of the U.S. Department of State with funding provided by the U.S. government and supported in its implementation by our team at American Councils for International Education. Again, my name is Caitlin Ting, and I'm the Assistant Manager for Outreach and Selection with the CLS program here at American Councils. So I will cover in today's presentation an overview of the CLS program, its program structure, as well as the benefits of participating and some tips on writing a compelling application. Feel free to use the Q&A box feature or the chat, or again, you're welcome to jump in. I think there's going to be a lot of time throughout, as well as at the end of presentation to answer your questions. Okay, so what is CLS? The CLS program is an intensive summer opportunity funded by the U.S. government for students to study one of a dozen languages essential to our engagement with the world. The CLS program supports U.S. students in all fields of study to learn what the U.S. Department of State refers to as critical languages. And these are languages that are essential to the United States national security, economic prosperity, and again, our engagement with the world. They do tend to be less commonly taught in the United States. So if you look at the languages on the next slide, you're probably going to realize they're not the languages that are taught on your campus that often. But studying these languages helps prepare you, helps prepare Americans to compete in a globalized workforce. CLS scholars participate in courses and activities that are offered through partner institutes abroad, thereby developing your regional and cultural knowledge, forming connections with local students and instructors. And students, you may apply for the CLS program, through which you get to study overseas, or you can apply for CLS Spark, which is a virtual initiative that offers, as you'll see, beginning level instruction in 5 different languages. So the CLS program offers overseas instruction in a dozen critical languages. You're going to want to have some sort of language experience. It could be from the classroom study, but could also be in order to meet the prerequisite. So for overseas, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, and Russian all require 1 year of prior experience, and Japanese requires 2 years of previous experience. With CLS Spark, on the other hand, this is instruction at the beginning level virtually. So we have beginning level Arabic, Chinese, Korean, and Russian again, as well as beginning and advanced beginning Japanese. And so what you might see and notice here then is that there's a pipeline. You could do CLS Spark to get you the prerequisite level to then go overseas. Okay. I do want to emphasize that for CLS Spark, each course really is designed for beginners with little to no previous experience studying these languages. And so if you do have some formal experience, if you've learned the alphabet or the script, or you're able to already know a little bit about the sounds and the pronunciation, then you might be a better fit for the 1 year prior study required. Okay. If you are thinking, I want to like really push myself, just note that students applying for languages with prerequisites must plan to meet that level requirement by the beginning of June. And so that's right before CLS begins. Okay. If you're trying to plan ahead, make the most out of this program, please keep that in mind. All right. So the CLS program takes place over the course of 8 to 10 weeks. This is during the summer, and Students participate in the program as a member of a cohort. You share the same schedule over the course of the program. And overseas, this would include 15 hours of language classes per week, as well as cultural activities, local excursions, and 1 or 2 weekend overnight group trips. Each participant is paired with a language partner who is a local student or a member of the host community, and you have this individual to practice speaking outside of the classroom. We often hear from alumni that their language partners are also their favorite part of the program and become quick lifelong friends. We do put a strong focus on students getting the opportunity to connect with the local culture. And so whenever possible, we also will place students overseas with host families or in dorms with local students. Just like the CLS program, CLS Spark takes place over the course of 8 to 9 weeks, also over the summer, and is facilitated by host institutes abroad. Again, students are participating in the program as a member of the cohort, sharing the same schedule over the course of the program. So you might be familiar with some courses that have been done online, maybe even during the pandemic, where it became very independent, very asynchronous. You signed on to Blackboard or to Canvas when you wanted to, when you were in your modules. Nope, not with CLS Spark. In this case, cohort participates in a total of 90 hours of programming. In each week, this includes 10 hours of live synchronous class instruction. In addition, you spend time learning about the culture of the partner institutions through interactive and engaging cultural activities like tea ceremonies, calligraphy lessons, films, virtual city tours. You also have individualized tutoring sessions with your instructors, as well as language partners from the host communities to, again, give you the opportunity to practice your everyday conversation skills. But don't worry, the language partners for CLS Spark doesn't start until the 5th week of the program, because we do understand that you're joining as beginning level learners. And so you need a little bit of time to get your foot. Participants of CLS Spark also build community with each other through optional career development workshops and networking opportunities. And these include advice from CLS alumni on applying to the overseas program, but there's also sessions to inform and help prepare you for more scholarship and career opportunities in the future. So as you can see, CLS Spark is more than just an online program. It's a very intensive, highly structured, virtual international exchange program. And if you're thinking about CLS Spark, keep in mind that you're thinking about 20 hours per week between class time, language partner meetings, those consultations or tutoring sessions with your instructors, and your homework. And then last but not least, given the demanding schedule for actually both Spark and our overseas program alike, students may not have the flexibility for independent research, internships, or travel. And so the CLS experience should be the main focus for your summer. Okay, so for some, the most exciting thing about CLS is that it is funded by the US government. So I just want to pause and let you all know that for the overseas program, the costs that are covered include round-trip international airfare, as well as any applicable visa fees, housing and meals, classroom instructions, and the cost of program-sponsored cultural programming activities. Yeah, okay, I said that correctly. It's a mouthful. The costs for CLS Spark are also pretty terrific. Costs covered include language instruction and cultural programming in your course materials. There is even a modest stipend that you can use toward supplementary or supplemental technology and equipment or connectivity costs, because you are being expected to participate and succeed in an all virtual programming. So maybe you might need a little bit of a lift to be able to do that. And we help you there. Regardless of the model, CLS participants make significant gains in their language ability. In just 8 to 10 weeks, students complete the equivalent of 2 semesters of undergraduate coursework and gain a year's worth of language learning. And the immersive nature of this program is the reason we have many alumni tell us that their language fluency was at its peak after CLS. Students also receive certification of their language gains through both a certificate upon completion of their program, as well as undergraduate academic credit that's issued by a US-based institution, Bryn Mawr College. And then last but not least, participants of CLS Spark are encouraged to apply to the CLS program overseas to continue their language learning journeys by studying their target language abroad. And those who apply for the CLS program overseas after they complete Spark are automatically considered semi-finalists for that opportunity. So again, trying to build that pipeline. We want you to have this experience. So outside of the language fluency, there are also program benefits related to your career. So proficiency in a critical language, as well as cross-cultural competency, can open doors for CLS alumni who are seeking further academic and employment opportunities. Studying abroad is going to help you develop and hone skills that employers seek: resilience, adaptability, confidence. Alumni speak frequently of the benefit of joining a vibrant and engaged community of international exchange alumni. Fellow alumni actually often become a source of support for when you're navigating career decisions or thinking about additional opportunities to apply for after CLS. CLS alumni also become a part of the rich and diverse network of US Department of State international exchange alumni. So that not only would you be a Rutgers alumni as you graduate, but once you complete CLS, you are now a CLS alumni. You're an international exchange alumni. You're building your network. And then while CLS participants have no service commitments to the US government after completion of the program, alumni are eligible for non-competitive eligibility for US government jobs. And this will make pursuing a career in civil service not much easier if that is your goal or if that's something that you even want to explore. So we can talk about that more too, because this is a huge perk for a lot of students. Okay, so who's eligible? Laura mentioned that this has already been touched on briefly, but I want to go through in greater detail. Students are eligible for the CLS program if they are US citizens or nationals enrolled in an accredited degree granting program at a US-based institution at the time of applying. So essentially, you need to be earning a bachelor's, master's, professional, doctoral degree, associate's degree. You can't be working towards just a certificate, okay? You do need to be a student also at a US-based institution, such as Rutgers. And participants must be 18 years old by May 15th, 2025, and have completed at least one full year of college level study by the start of the program. I understand that a lot of people here today are graduating seniors, but I'm still sharing this with you just in case you've got a friend or a family member that you think might be interested in this down the line. And then applicants for the CLS program at the overseas institutes may be at the undergraduate or graduate level. Applicants for CLS Spark must be at the undergraduate level. Students in each cohort come from all different academic backgrounds, programs, and have different levels of experience with language and travel. We are actively recruiting students from groups who are otherwise underrepresented in study abroad because CLS is a great opportunity for all students. And we want to make sure that all students are realizing that this is for them. We also work year-round with the Department of State and our partner institutions to ensure that everyone is having a safe and successful summer, whether that's through CLS Spark or the CLS program at overseas institutes. So at this point, I do want to go over what the application looks like and give you some of my best pointers as to how to think about these essays. I'm going to start with the overseas program. The application here includes 3 short answer essays and a personal statement. Please note there is no GPA requirement. There's also no letter of recommendation requirement. In fact, with respect to the letter of recommendation, we won't even accept one if you have one. It's an even playing field. So the first short answer essay will ask you to address citizen diplomacy and mutual understanding. A key goal of the CLS program is to increase and broaden the number of Americans who are studying and speaking critical languages in order to develop mutual understanding between the people of the US and the people of other countries. So with that goal of mutual understanding, CLS scholars are responsible for representing the US as citizen diplomats in their host communities. And then in this essay, applicants are being asked to address how they will contribute to their role as a citizen diplomat and to that overarching mission of building mutual understanding, both abroad as well as upon returning to the US. The second short answer essay addresses preparation for the program. Here we're talking about the fact that studying abroad requires resilience, openness, sensitivity, adaptability, self-awareness. And so as an applicant, you want to discuss what challenges you anticipate while on the program, and also how you envision yourself succeeding. And you would do so most convincingly by drawing on examples of where you've overcome challenges in the past. The third short essay addresses commitment to language study. And here, applicants should explain what opportunities, if any, they've taken advantage of in pursuit of studying their language. So how CLS fits into your plan to develop proficiency, and also how you'll continue to study and engage with the language after the program. Okay, so far that's citizen diplomacy and mutual understanding, preparation for the CLS program, and then your commitment to language study. In the personal statement, you tie everything up with a bow and you articulate your interest in the program. You really dig into your long-term academic and career goals, how the CLS program is essential to achieving those goals, as well as what qualities, perspectives, and experiences that make you a good candidate for the program. So it's almost like you've got these very targeted essays, the first three. And then if there's anything else that you think that the reader should know about you, and that you think will help them understand you as an applicant, you put that in the personal statement. CLS Spark then has its own application because it's a different program. It's really looking for beginning level learners. This application consists of 3 short answer essays, but there's no personal statement. There's no letter of recommendation requirement. I also want to emphasize here that for CLS Spark, preference is given to applicants from campuses that don't offer their CLS language. So you really want to make that explicit and abundantly clear to the reviewer if that fits you. The first Spark essay is a statement of motivation. And in this essay, you should be addressing your interest in the target language and also how your interest relates to your goals. The second essay is the statement of access to language learning and opportunities. In here, you want to reflect on what barriers, if any, you've encountered in your pursuit of language study and why CLS Spark is a necessary and unique opportunity. So if it is the case that maybe Indonesian isn't offered at Rutgers, for example, then you'd want to make sure that you're saying, I've got this passion for Indonesian. I want to study it because it relates to my plans on becoming, or pursuing your economics major. But you want to make it clear then and say, I've looked for opportunities, but it's not offered here, right? Just to make sure the reviewer really knows, and to make sure that you get that preference given to you. And then finally, students are asked to reflect in their statement of experience on what experiences, perspective, and background they can bring to their cohort, as well as contribute to that larger goal of mutual understanding. Because even though for Spark, you're studying virtually, you're still studying with a cohort of students from all across the US, and you're still being taught by an institution abroad. So you are still contributing to that goal of mutual understanding. And I also want to pause right now and let you all know that if you want to go back and revisit the selection criteria for the applicants for CLS or CLS Spark, those can be found on our website at clscholarship.org/applicants/selection. Right. So if you're interested in applying, I would recommend that you check out our short videos. They cover the application timeline, the selection process. There are videos on application tips as well. I would also recommend that you be reaching out to your professors, other trusted resources on your campus for help with your application. Faculty and instructors might have ideas for areas of international interest as it relates to your field. But I'm sure also that Laura and her colleagues would love to talk with you about CLS, help you brainstorm ideas, give you feedback on your essays. So the application for the program is open now. It will close on November 19th, so you've got just under a month. It's plenty of time to be working on this application. I would recommend, though, that you submit your application in advance of the deadline. So if you have it done, the day before the due date, please submit it then on November 18th and not the 19th. Because as you saw with myself in Zoom, last minute computer glitches will crop up if you put them off to the last minute. So for me, I should have been like, I have a Zoom presentation later today. I should have restarted my computer, looked for Zoom updates ahead of time, and not waited to click on Zoom at 11:25, 11:30, right? So that was not the time I clicked on it. But you get the same point. If you have your application done, you're not waiting until 7:59 p.m. on November 19th to hit submit. You're submitting it in the morning, you're submitting it the day before. Okay, that principle still applies. By late January, every applicant will be notified by email of whether they will advance to the second round of selection. And then those who do advance to the second round can expect to be notified again by early March as to whether they have been selected for the award. So it is kind of a long waiting period, but I promise you that we are spending every day in between reading your application very thoroughly and considering it for this program. We are offering webinars on this year's languages throughout the rest of the month. We also have weekly office hours until mid-November. So you can register for these events if you'd like to attend and have your questions answered. You can also find recordings of past webinars on our website at clscholarship.org/events. Or if you'd like to receive some updates about the program, some reminders, you can follow us on social media. All right. So that is my spiel. It was a good full 20 minutes of content. If any of you do have questions, I'd love to answer them now. If any of you are feeling a little inundated with information, I would respect and understand that too. I'm someone that usually needs a little bit of time to reflect on what's just been shared with me. But I'm available in case you do have questions. Thank you again so much for inviting me to speak today.
Thank you, Caitlin. It was very thorough and very helpful. I know that we were having a conversation before we got started with our recording today, so I'd like to invite our students to either unmute themselves or put a question in the chat if they have one. I also wrote down some questions on behalf of our students. If it's okay, maybe we can start with those. So I had two questions. The first is that I'm asking from the perspective of a reviewer. We are Rutgers as one institution. However, you made it very clear that there's a benefit to applying for students who maybe don't have access to certain languages. And the languages that are available are different at each of our three campuses. And so our students at Rutgers Camden, three languages are offered on our campus, none of which are critical languages. And so is there something you would encourage students to distinguish? Because while the reviewers might be thinking, well, of course, Rutgers offers this language, our students do not necessarily have access to that because they would have to take it remotely. It may not kind of fit the criteria of their program, so on.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, we've got these essays that I described in the application, but there's a little bit of a form beforehand where one of the sections will ask about language study and travel. And so that's an opportunity where a student could have a little bit more space where they could describe the different ways that they've engaged with the language, and they could explain potentially that the courses are not offered at your specific campus. You could also take some time and do that in your essays as well. If you want to show your commitment, you could say, at Camden, right? This language is only offered once every 4 semesters, making something up, or this language is not offered at all. So I have looked to the local community centers to engage with these populations as sort of a supplement. And that will be a cue to the reviewer. Oh, okay. I'm thinking of Rutgers broadly, but it's not actually the Rutgers that this student is at. And I will say that for CLS Spark, because that initiative really has an emphasis on access, because we're starting from the ground up, right, with the beginning level, you are given a specific question that says, is this language offered on your campus? It says campus, not institution.
Mm.
So you should make sure you select no, and when you select
We're having a little trouble with our connection, but um, do you want to just repeat that last part after selecting no? I'm sorry.
yes. For Spark, if you select no, my language is not offered on my campus, a 75-word box pops up, and you have an opportunity to provide additional context. So that's a great place then for you to be able to say, Rutgers, the institution, has this language. Rutgers, the campus, does not have it. It's a 30-minute drive, for example.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah.
My second question, and then we'll turn it over to our students if that's okay, was if you could just walk us through the review process. So you talked about the different stages going from semifinalist to finalist, what
Yep.
maybe our reviewers looking for and kind of what that process looks like.
Yeah, it's a great question. So our review process is twofold. We have round one, and we're recruiting reviewers from various backgrounds. So you want to be speaking broadly, but thoroughly. So we are engaging study abroad professionals, fellowship professionals, advisors. We engage language faculty, even program alumni, and they're reviewing the applications for the selection criteria. Okay, and those are on the website, like I had mentioned. But we're looking to make sure that you're answering each prompt, that you're providing examples, and that you're touching on the selection criteria. Okay. If you say very broadly, I want to work in international business and therefore I need an international experience, that's too broad. Okay. We want to know specifically then what would be the language, why that language, how's it going to shape your career and goals? Are you going to be working with a specific international audience? Right. If you say I want to be a healthcare professional and it's important that I speak the languages of my patients, that's a great start. But let's go further. Why these patients? What's your connection? Right? Or how do we know that you're actually going to be engaging with patients who speak that language? Is there something about the demographics of the city that you want to work in? Right? Or maybe it has to do with your heritage and your background, and you explain that you grew up, always kind of speaking one language with your grandparents, but you've never actually gotten to the point where you can write them a card, right? And so you want to be reading the newspapers and writing the language and not just sort of speaking the language. And that in turn, this has informed your interest in language acquisition, because how is it that you can speak the language and hear the language, but you don't know how to read or write the language? Okay, so you want to be providing a full picture. And what I think is some really great advice is that the CLS program does not have an interview as part of the review process. So you want to be anticipating what a reviewer might want to ask you if they were in person and put that down in your writing. Okay, so maybe you give the 3 essays to a professor that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, or a writing tutor, or your parents even, your roommate, just someone with a good eye, and you ask them, like, what else do you want to know about me? Like, what's missing from these 3 essays that I've written so far? Sometimes it's your personality, because you wrote so dry and to the bone trying to get to the prompt, and they're like, you're a super fun individual and you never say no. How has that not gotten across here?
Mm. Excellent.
So I
That's
hope that
great.
helps.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right. So for our audience, anybody have questions that they'd like to ask of Caitlin at this time? Going once. All right. With that, I'm going to stop the recording.